We always hear that words matter, but how exactly do they matter in politics? It's not just about what they say, it's about what they're built to do. So today, we're going to deconstruct how political language gets turned into a weapon.
Okay, so our starting point is this piece of academic writing. Now, on the surface, it looks like a totally serious analysis of modern American politics. I mean, it uses all the right jargon, it cites all the right people, but as we're about to see, there's a lot more going on under the hood.
Just take a look at this quote right from the source material. Notice that wording, a failure to deal with an expected reality. Right away, you can tell this isn't neutral language. It's immediately setting up one political group as being, well, fundamentally out of touch.
And that is exactly the point. It's presented as this formal, scholarly observation. The language is dense, it's clinical, and it makes it sound like an objective diagnosis of a group's entire worldview, kind of like a doctor describing a patient's symptoms. And that's totally on purpose.
So this question is really the key that unlocks this whole explainer. What if this isn't about understanding at all? What if we need to look right past that surface presentation to see that the language is actually doing? All right, let's start peeling back the layers here. When we break down the specific vocabulary the author chooses to use, we can start to see the hidden strategy buried under all that academic jargon.
So what the author is doing is using what you could call pathologizing language. See, opposing political views aren't presented as just, different opinions. No, they're framed as psychological flaws. They're called sublimations. They're linked to magical thinking, and they're connected to these really negative emotions like disgust. This isn't an argument, it's a diagnosis.
And to make this whole thing sound legit, the author brings in some intellectual heavyweights, like the German philosopher Jürgen Habermas. Now, Habermas is famous for his ideas about the public sphere, this space where people are supposed to be able to have open, rational debates to actually understand each other. And this just brilliantly highlights the central irony here. The author is literally using a philosopher who championed open dialogue to justify why dialogue is impossible. It's like citing a book about peaceful negotiation to go start a fight. It creates this framework where one side is rational and the other side is just a patient that needs to be managed. You can see how this moves from just, a biased analysis into something way more tactical. We're shifting now from just looking at the argument to looking at the weapon itself. And this gets us to a really critical distinction. Is the author just making a sloppy, flawed argument, or is something more intentional going on here? Our perspective has to shift from judging the quality of the analysis to analyzing its purpose. And here it is, broken down. The text presents itself as an objective analysis, a simple diagnosis of flaws. But its actual function is to act as intellectual camouflage for a political attack. It's using the sterile, clean language of academia to hide a pretty raw partisan agenda. There's actually a name for this tactic: credential hacking. It's basically a way to launder a political opinion to make it look like objective data. By dropping names like Weber and Habermas and using all this complex jargon, the author is borrowing their authority to give a partisan attack the weight of scientific fact. So the crucial point is this: we're not looking at a genuine attempt to understand a different point of view. Not at all. We are looking at a piece of weaponized persuasion, pure and simple. It's advocacy that's been carefully packaged to look like science. So now that we've kind of identified the weapon, let's look at the defense mechanism it's designed to trigger. Because this kind of attack doesn't just happen in a vacuum. It's meant to provoke a very specific and honestly a very powerful response. This is such a powerful idea. It reframes disgust as not just an emotion, but as a strategic defense. I mean, think about it. Disgust is a biological reflex that makes us recoil from things that could make us sick. Well, when it's applied to ideas, it serves the exact same function. It shuts down any engagement to prevent you from getting infected. And that's what we're calling the ideological immune system. Just like your body's immune system protects you, this social mechanism protects a group's core beliefs. It works by labeling any threatening ideas as toxic or disgusting, and that effectively neutralizes them before they can ever be seriously considered. And here's how it works, in 4 simple steps. First, an outside idea gets identified as a threat, a pathogen. Then, the group signals its rejection, usually with contempt or disgust. What that does is immediately shut down any curiosity and replace it with a feeling of recoil. And the end result? The group's worldview is preserved, totally safe from any infection. Now, activating this immune system, it has some obvious upsides. It protects you against these weaponized ideas, and it creates really strong cohesion within the group. But man, it comes at a huge cost. It completely prevents any learning from the outside, it blinds you to what your opposition is actually about, and it just destroys any chance for real dialogue.
But this is where that powerful biological analogy starts to break down, especially in the messy world of politics. Because, let's face it, a political group is not the same as a biological organism, and when you apply this immune system logic, you walk right into a dangerous trap.
Think about it like the body versus the blob. In a healthy body, every cell maintains its own integrity, but it works to serve the whole. But in today's partisan world, you're often asked to just become part of a blob, to dissolve your individual identity, your nuance, just to serve the side. You're not a functional cell anymore. You're just biomass for the cause. And this is the absolute core of the partisan trap. The whole game is set up to force you into a corner, to make you define yourself not by what you stand for, but in reaction to your enemy. You end up losing your own sovereignty because you're playing on a map that someone else drew for you. So, if reacting and just taking a side is a trap that's designed to steal your agency, then what's the way out? How are you supposed to navigate a world that's just full of these weaponized ideas without getting caught in the crossfire? Which brings us to really the most important takeaway from all of this. If choosing a side in this rigged game is a losing move, there has to be another way to operate. And maybe this is it. What if instead of just picking a team, you focused on building your own clear, functional operating system, one that's based on your own values, your own goals, and your own rules of engagement? That isn't just a defense, it's a far more powerful way to navigate our world.